Welcome back to Mighty Habits, everybody. I am so excited for our deep dive today because we're going to be talking about a book that I know is going to challenge some assumptions
Oh, yeah,
about love and relationships.
definitely.
So the book is called Sex at Dawn by Christopher Ryan and Cacilda Jethá. Have
Hmm.
you heard of this one?
Oh, yeah. Sex at Dawn. It's a classic.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard of it, prepare to have your mind blown
Yeah, it really shakes things up.
because we're going to be questioning a lot of those assumptions about monogamy.
That's right. Those ideas about, one person for life.
Exactly. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, is it really natural or is it...
Is it just a story we've been telling ourselves?
Right, exactly. What's fascinating is the book really digs into the history of human sexuality.
Yeah.
It proposes that our evolutionary path
Okay.
might not have been so straightforward.
Okay. So not necessarily leading us.
Not necessarily like a beeline to monogamy.
Not a beeline to monogamy like we think of it today.
Yeah, like what we often assume.
Right. Exactly. Like walking down the aisle, that's not really
Not necessarily hardwired.
right.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Sex at Dawn focuses a lot on hunter-gatherer societies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why are these ancient social structures so important?
Right. They seem so different from us.
Yeah.
Like, why should we care?
Exactly. Like, what do they have to do with us today?
Well, you'd be surprised. Hunter-gatherer societies, they were small.
Okay.
They were nomadic.
Mhm.
They shared resources.
Yeah.
And they offer us this really unique window into a time when human interaction, including,
Sexual interaction.
yeah, it was much more fluid than we tend to picture.
More fluid.
Okay. Yeah. So imagine a
Okay.
world where
Okay.
possessiveness and jealousy, those cornerstones of like every romantic comedy,
Right.
they weren't the driving force
Wow. Okay.
behind relationships.
So wait, are you saying jealousy is like learned?
That's exactly the question Sex at Dawn asks.
Okay.
Like, think about it. What if those feelings we consider so fundamental to love?
Yeah, like if you don't get jealous, you don't really love them.
Right, exactly. Or like,
That's what we're told.
that's what we think.
Right.
But what if it's actually a product of societal shifts?
Okay. So like a product of.
Like when we switched to agriculture
Oh, okay.
and suddenly private property became a thing.
Okay. So you're saying that transition to agriculture.
Yeah.
That's when like ownership and inheritance.
Exactly.
That's when it really shifted.
And that fueled the rise of monogamy as a way to control.
Lineage and resources.
You got it.
Okay. So it wasn't about love. It was about.
It makes you think, right?
Yeah. Really?
Like, did monogamy come about as this like social contract driven by practicality?
Okay.
Not just like these innate biological urges.
Wow. Okay. So this is making me rethink.
Yeah.
Like everything I thought I knew about relationships.
Right.
It's like, whoa, somebody just like pulled back the curtain and showed me.
Oh,
different.
different stage set.
Right, exactly. But, okay, so what kind of evidence does Sex at Dawn actually use to back this up?
Well, they look at a bunch of different sources.
Okay.
Starting with our primate relatives.
Okay, our primate relatives like monkeys.
Yeah, so like gorillas, one big alpha male.
Controls all the females.
Right, exactly. But bonobos and chimpanzees,
Okay.
our closest cousins genetically,
Right.
they have much more fluid sexual interactions within their groups.
If our closest relatives aren't strictly monogamous,
Mm-hmm.
then that kind of throws a wrench in the whole.
It throws a wrench in the whole idea.
Right.
Yeah, that it's like this natural human state.
Right, that it's like in our DNA to be monogamous.
Right, exactly.
But they don't stop there.
No, Sex at Dawn goes even further.
Okay.
They look at anthropological studies of modern-day hunter-gatherer societies.
See, they're still around.
Oh, yeah, there are still cultures out there
Oh, wow.
living in these ways.
That's amazing.
It's like having a time machine.
Yeah, you get like a glimpse into the past.
Exactly.
So what do they observe in these societies?
They find groups where sexual exclusivity
Okay.
isn't the norm.
Okay, so not the norm.
Paternity is often uncertain,
Oh, wow.
and jealousy, while it exists,
Huh.
it doesn't have the same, power.
Doesn't hold the same sway.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay, so that's pretty different.
It is like, for example, the Masuo people.
Okay.
They have these walking marriages.
What?
Yeah, women choose their partners freely.
Wow.
Paternity is an essential concern.
Yeah.
It's a whole different paradigm.
It's like a different world.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I bet some people listening are thinking like,
Yeah.
is this book like advocating for free love?
That's a good question, but not necessarily.
Okay.
It's not about prescribing a specific lifestyle.
Okay.
Sex at Dawn is more about encouraging us to understand human sexuality better,
Okay.
challenging this idea that there's one right way to do relationships.
So it's more about opening up the conversation
Exactly.
and saying everyone needs to be polyamorous.
Yeah, right. It's not about dictating how we should live.
Right.
It's about giving us a new lens
Okay.
to view our own experiences,
Yeah, so like to question our own
our assumptions.
assumptions, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm already feeling like I need to reevaluate like all of my relationship beliefs.
That's a lot to take in.
This is heavy stuff.
It is.
But before we like jump into all of that,
Yeah.
I think we need to really understand how we got from there to here.
Yeah. How did that shift to agriculture really change the game for human relationships?
Exactly.
It's a pivotal moment.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Okay. So picture this, a world before fences,
Okay, no fences.
before deeds, before this concept of like mine and yours,
Okay.
extended beyond like your personal stuff.
Right.
But then agriculture comes along.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of property takes root literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Land ownership is suddenly
Power.
wealth, power, and inheritance emerges as a
Right.
way to pass down that wealth.
So controlling paternity becomes really important.
That's like a soap opera.
Yeah.
Right. To make sure the wealth stays within the family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to make sure your kids are your kids.
Right.
So monogamy, with its emphasis on exclusive sexual relationships
Okay.
and clear lines of inheritance,
Becomes a tool.
it becomes a tool to maintain order,
Oh, wow.
to consolidate power.
So it wasn't really about love or even biology.
It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
right?
It was about control.
Control and social engineering.
It's a cynical perspective.
It is, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Makes you think how much of what we believe about relationships
Mm-hmm.
is rooted in these ancient power dynamics.
Right.
And not like genuine human needs and desires.
That is the question. We've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, there's so much more to uncover.
We haven't even gotten into like gender roles and desire and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like my brain is doing backflips already.
It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in. We've got a lot more ground to cover.
But let's just take a moment for our listeners to like absorb all of this.
Yeah, let it sink in.
Yeah. Because this idea that monogamy
Mm-hmm.
might not be as natural
Yeah.
as we've been led to believe.
It's a big pill to swallow.
It's a big pill to swallow.
It really challenges what we think we know.
It does. It's like shaking up a snow globe
I love that.
and watching the flakes settle in a new pattern.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, folks. This deep dive
This is just the beginning.
just getting started.
Yeah. It's fascinating to think, right? Like, are some of the relationship problems we have today
Mm-hmm.
because we're trying to fit into this mold?
Right.
That might not be.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we're trying to jam a square peg in a round hole.
I like that.
Right.
Okay, but let's address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The book isn't saying that monogamy is wrong, is it?
No, not at all.
It's more nuanced.
It is. It acknowledges that monogamy is
The dominant model.
the dominant model in a lot of cultures. And it explores, how we got here.
Right, like the historical and social forces
Mm-hmm.
that led us to this.
That shaped this.
So, if humans aren't necessarily hardwired for monogamy,
Right.
why is it so widespread?
Well, like we were talking about earlier,
Mhm.
that shift to agriculture,
Right.
that was a big turning point.
Right.
Suddenly, private property,
Mhm.
inheritance,
Yeah.
controlling paternity to make sure that wealth stays in the family.
All of that becomes super important.
Huge.
So monogamy
Mhm.
becomes like this social contract.
Right. A way to maintain order and stability in
Yeah.
a world where possessions and lineage really matter.
Okay, so it's less about love
Yeah.
and more about practicality.
In a way. Yeah.
But let's be real, even in societies where monogamy is like the norm,
Right.
infidelity happens.
It does.
Right.
People don't always follow the rules.
Exactly. So is that tension
Mm-hmm.
between our evolved tendencies
Right.
and our societal expectations?
Yeah.
Like, is that part of the problem?
Sex at Dawn suggests that it could be,
Okay.
that maybe that's contributing to some of the conflict
Heartache.
and heartache.
In relationships.
Yeah, are we setting ourselves up for disappointment
Right.
by trying to adhere to this model that might not fully align with us?
Yeah. Are we fighting our own nature in a way?
It's a question worth considering,
Right.
but it's important to remember we're not just robots
Correct. That's
controlled by our biology.
Right. We have choice.
We have reason.
We have free will.
Exactly. Sex at Dawn isn't about saying everyone go out and be polyamorous.
Right.
It's about having honest conversations
Okay.
about desires, expectations,
Yeah.
what truly works for people.
Like what actually works
Yeah.
for individuals and couples.
So it's about recognizing that we have choices
Mm-hmm.
and being empowered
Yeah.
to make conscious decisions.
Right. Not just blindly following what society tells us.
Right. Exactly.
So what does this all mean, like practically? Are you suggesting we need to like throw out the whole concept of relationships?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
It's about questioning those rigid assumptions
Okay.
about how relationships should be.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so for some people,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a more flexible or open approach
Okay.
to relationships feels more authentic, more
Yeah.
fulfilling.
Wow.
For others, traditional monogamy might still be the ideal.
Right.
The key is that there's no one right answer.
Okay.
It's about what works for each individual.
Each individual and each couple.
Exactly.
So open communication, honesty,
Yes.
and being willing to challenge those preconceived notions.
Absolutely. It takes courage
Yeah.
and vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
but it can lead to such amazing self-awareness.
Right. And potentially stronger relationships.
Exactly.
I'm looking at my own relationships differently now.
Yeah.
I'm questioning things I've always just assumed.
It's like taking the red pill.
It is, like in the Matrix.
Exactly.
Once we start questioning, we open ourselves up to these whole new possibilities.
There's totally new ways of understanding ourselves and
Yeah.
our connections with others.
So maybe happily ever after
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look the same for everyone.
Right.
Maybe it's not a destination.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
I love that.
Embracing that diversity of experience.
Mhm.
Maybe that's the key.
It could be.
But Sex at Dawn doesn't just talk about romantic relationships.
Right.
They also talk about this idea of fluid bonding.
Yes.
And I'm really intrigued by this.
Me too.
Because it challenges that narrow focus on romantic love,
Mm-hmm.
and it expands what we think of as meaningful connection.
Exactly.
So what is fluid bonding?
So it emphasizes those really powerful connections we
Mhm.
make through shared experiences,
Okay.
especially ones that involve deep emotional and physical intimacy.
Okay.
And the book argues that these bonds aren't just limited to romantic partners.
Okay, so it's recognizing those deep connections
Mm-hmm.
outside of just romance.
Exactly. Like, think about our evolutionary past.
Okay.
Survival depended on cooperation within the group.
Right.
Those bonds of trust and support,
Mhm.
they weren't just between couples, they
Right.
were throughout the community.
Like the whole tribe.
The whole village.
It takes a village.
Exactly.
But we're not living in hunter-gatherer bands anymore.
True.
So how does this translate to our modern lives?
Well, that need for connection,
Mm-hmm.
it's still a fundamental part of being human.
Right.
We crave intimacy, belonging,
Yeah.
a sense of shared purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Our social structures might have changed,
Right.
but our capacity for deep bonds,
Hasn't gone away.
not at all.
So how do we cultivate these fluid bonds today?
Well, it starts with recognizing the value of all kinds of relationships
Okay.
and nurturing those connections intentionally.
So not just taking them for granted.
Right, making time for loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
having meaningful conversations.
Showing up for each other.
So it's about building a support system
Mm-hmm.
that goes beyond just one romantic partner.
Exactly. It's like creating our own village.
Our own modern village.
Exactly.
And it's not just about receiving support,
Yeah.
but giving it too.
Absolutely. Being a reliable friend,
Mm-hmm.
a caring family member,
Yeah.
an active part of our community.
Wow, this is making me rethink
Yeah.
like everything.
It's a shift in perspective.
It is. It's like I've been wearing blinders this whole time.
It's easy to get caught up
Yeah.
in those cultural narratives.
Right. All those fairy tales.
Find the one.
Happily ever after.
But Sex at Dawn reminds us
Yeah.
there's so much more to the story.
So much more to human connection
Yeah.
than just finding that one person.
Exactly.
Happily ever after might look different for everyone.
It might.
It might be multiple loves,
Yeah.
deep friendships,
Mm-hmm.
strong family ties.
Absolutely.
It's about embracing all of it.
The richness and diversity.
Yeah. Of human experience.
This has been so eye-opening.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
And it's exciting.
It is exciting. We've gone from challenging assumptions about monogamy
Mm-hmm.
to exploring this whole idea of fluid bonding.
It's been a whirlwind.
It has been a whirlwind.
I love these conversations.
Me too.
They really make you think.
They do.
It's wild to think like maybe we've been limiting ourselves
Mm-hmm.
by putting so much emphasis on finding the one.
Yeah, like that's the goal.
Yeah, it's like that's the be-all and end-all.
Right. And then everything else is secondary.
Exactly. But what if we zoomed out a bit?
Okay.
and recognize that there are so many ways to experience connection.
Okay, so expand our definition of intimacy.
Yeah, and acknowledge the value of all kinds of relationships.
So not just romantic.
Not just romantic, friendships, family, community.
Yeah, like it takes a village.
Exactly.
Right.
Sex at Dawn really encourages us to look beyond just romantic love
Mm-hmm.
and see that bigger picture of human connection.
So like in our evolutionary past, survival literally depended
On cooperation.
on cooperation, on interdependence within the group.
Right. It took a whole village.
Right.
And those bonds of trust and support,
Mhm.
they weren't just between couples.
Right, with the whole community.
It was everybody working together.
But we're not living in hunter-gatherer bands anymore.
True.
So how do we apply this to our modern lives?
Yeah. Well, that need for connection, it's
Yeah.
still there.
Right? It's like hardwired into us.
It's part of being human.
We crave intimacy, belonging.
Yeah. A shared purpose.
Even though our social structures have changed,
Mm-hmm.
that hasn't gone away.
No, not at all.
Okay, so how do we cultivate these fluid bonds today?
Well, it starts with recognizing the value of all those different kinds of relationships
Mm-hmm.
and nurturing them.
Okay.
Being intentional about it.
So making time for loved ones.
Yes. Having those deep conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Being there for each other.
Yeah, showing up.
Showing up. Exactly.
So it's building a support system that's bigger than just one person,
Exactly.
creating our own village.
Our own modern village.
And it's not just about getting support,
No, it's about giving it, too.
being that support for others.
Being a good friend, a caring family member,
Mm-hmm.
contributing to our community.
This is making me realize
Yeah.
I've been so focused on just romantic relationships
Mm-hmm.
that I've kind of overlooked all these other amazing connections in my life.
It happens.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in those fairy tales.
Right. Find the one.
Happily ever after.
But Sex at Dawn shows us
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more to it.
There's a whole spectrum of human connection.
So maybe happily ever after
Mm-hmm.
looks different for everyone.
Maybe it involves multiple loves,
Yeah.
strong friendships, family ties, a sense of community,
It's about embracing all of it.
the richness and the diversity of human experience.
I love that.
Me too.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
from monogamy to fluid bonding.
It's been a journey.
It has been a journey.
And it's just the beginning.
That's right. To our amazing listeners, if you're ready to have your mind blown wide open
Yeah.
and reimagine what human connection can look like,
Absolutely.
check out Sex at Dawn by Christopher Ryan and Cacilda Jethá.
It'll make you think.
It will make you think. And it'll probably spark some interesting conversations, too.
Definitely.
And don't forget to subscribe to Mighty Habits for more mind-expanding deep dives.
Yeah, we've got so much more to explore.
We do. Until next time, keep those minds curious
And those hearts open.
to the endless possibilities of human connection.